Hey everybody, it's Carpo here. I just thought I'd make a video about my history with carpentry. It's something that, I don't know, it was a major part of my life and something that I took a lot of pride in. And I guess, so in other words, I wasn't always just an herb vendor and a YouTube dude. I actually have some real world skills that I learned. When I was about 18, I got into roofing with a friend of mine. And over time, it developed into getting a job with another friend, doing some basic framing and construction, building foundations, and got a job working for this one guy, Gary. This was an old bank job that we had where we had torn down basically everything inside the bank. That in the background is the vault there, which we left intact for storage, because if you've ever tried to remove a bank vault door, that's not an easy thing. So anyhow, we built partitions, and at this point I was just kind of a demo guy doing a variety of construction techniques, learning and watching them. But eventually one guy, Morgan, I think that's him there, took me under his wing and saw something in me, so he showed me some of his techniques and taught me a little bit about finished carpentry. Worked for those guys for a while until I realized my boss was a complete douchebag. Quit, and I got a job working for another guy in Lake Oswego. So I'm just going to start with a project. We worked on a few projects, but this is when we started in Lake Oswego. It was right on the lake, and I worked for a guy for a couple of years on this particular job. And around this time I was an employee, but during this job I actually got licensed and bonded and insured as my own carpenter, and then started working for him as a subcontractor. So this is like walking in the front door, and then you have a curved staircase that goes down, and like a banister up here. It's kind of a floating second story. In essence, the house was a single-story house with a basement, kinda. They didn't want to have to tear the whole house down, because it would change the zoning laws and setbacks from the lake. So we blasted the roof off and added a second story. Everything in here is solid mahogany, and I'll get into more detail in a little bit about that, but a little pineapple here, and it's kind of a tropical feel. This right here was down in the basement, and I was working on a bar. He wanted a custom bar built. That was all out of mahogany, Brazilian mahogany, and in the end it was all stained like this. Ended up looking pretty damn nice. And these were just some basic projects I did under my own license. Some handrails, and this was my friend Scott's place that we did some tiling there for him. A few other things. Nothing big, nothing compared to the other one. But a fireplace mantle and an interesting soffit. So here's the front of the house that we did, the same house, and here we used mahogany as well for all of the trim, and it's kind of hard to see in here, but there's some really nice detail work, and a giant like 9-foot front door. And over here we have this, you might not be able to see it very well, but there's two windows divided with some cedar lap siding here, and then a fan, which I was put in charge of. So it's got like a cedar half dome fan, and it was all done in one piece and then installed above the windows. And I was pretty proud of that at the time. But further inside, we actually had this interesting, the homeowners were really nice people, and they kind of set me loose on drawing and planning out what was going to go on this beam in the living room. So I played around with a few different ideas. I'm not sure where the final drawings are, but they basically just said, do what you will. And that's what I came up with. It's got some, see if I can focus it in on there. Yeah, so this is all done in, I believe, stained cedar over, this is a glue lam, or a laminate beam, that was used to hold up the second story. And it actually goes all the way around here to a post, you can't see outside of the picture, and wraps back around. And so it's designed to where the cedar and the mahogany kind of are designed to come down and leave some empty space there, so it looks kind of like it's flowing. And we were pretty stoked on that. I really enjoyed doing that one. I actually still have dreams about it. Like, I want to go back and visit, see how it looks now. And just a couple more side projects I did. This was a mantle in the same house made out of mahogany. This was out in front. We did a herringbone pattern in the Trex deck out front the door. And some more side projects, mantles. There's the pineapple that we did, or that I did. I carved it with the hand tools and whatnot, and when they did a little article about it, they mentioned that, and I was pretty stoked. With the keystone block in there as a centerpiece. So my boss asked me, they said, who wants to do the staircase? And nobody volunteered. I was the only one who was interested. So he set me loose completely on doing a curved cherry rail floating handrail staircase. Well, it's not floating, but there's no posts. This whole thing is just done with iron balusters, and each one has to be locked in to a tread somewhere to where it's not hitting a nose. The planning for it was just immense for a person who had never done this, but I was very proud when I was finished, and it turned out wonderful. Every little piece had to be cut around the edge, and every tread had to be cut to where it would fit the carpet perfectly, and it turned out really nice in the end. And so here's out in the back. This is what it looked like in the backyard. And all three decks, we did some really beautiful wire handrails in there. What else I have in here? I have this, which I'll talk about in a moment. The next guy I worked for, once I quit working for that guy, I started working for a guy in the West Hills. He had me disassemble and design a wingback chair, basically taking a piece of furniture that he had, which looked something like this. And he wanted me to disassemble a chair he had and break it down into all its single pieces. Even though as a carpenter I know that you can't just disassemble pieces that are doweled and jointed. It really took a lot of work, and I don't have any pictures of the final product here, but I ended up making a beautiful wingback chair frame for him, and that's part of it during the process. And I spent, a good week of solid work every day modeling that thing. Another thing he wanted me to do was duplicate this Schumacher Soho console table. It has a large center drawer and then two side drawers. And the trick is that all of these are built out of one solid piece of wood, so the grain matches. And, well, that's what this is. The desk that I use for everything. It was all done with soft closed hinges and dovetailed joints. And when you push it shut, it just closes itself. So there's 3 drawers on it, and he tried to do the finish work himself and screwed it up, and so he ended up just giving it to me because he didn't want it anymore. He was a strange guy, and he had a really nice guy, but I'd just say he's a wasteful guy, and I benefited from that because he screwed up the stain job and then just gave it to me. But it was a $1,500 table. So that's all I've got in that box. So really all I wanted to show, except, for that house that we did in Lake Oswego, we ended up getting it in the Lake Oswego Homes edition. It says moving on up, and it even has a little explanation about the family and the work we did. And then on the other page it, I'm not sure where it's at, but it's got like a picture of the little pineapple, and it talks about it being the centerpiece. And I was like, hey man, we made it into the papers, that's awesome. But this right here, I guess, would be the pride and joy of my carpentry career. When I was working for that same guy that I did the wingback chairs for, we decided to do his kitchen, and we got it posted in this magazine, and it's a centerfold that says past perfect. And I gotta say, as a carpenter, to have your work centered in a magazine like this as past perfect, it's pretty damn honorable. I spent 2 years on this house. These cabinets, a lot of them were actually built by a different company, and then I did all the finish work. I actually built this whole island from scratch. All the pieces were hand chosen. There's like 8 or 9 different pieces on these little columns here. The entire vent cover had to be custom fit, and about 3 inches from, or about 1.5 inches actually, from the ceiling. The ceiling was drooping heavily, and I had to do a coffered ceiling on it, which is a bunch of boxes. And I'll just say that to get the ceiling perfectly level and have a floating cabinets was a major, major trick. And I have a couple of pictures over here to try to give a better example of the ceiling. Now you can kind of see the inlays. Every piece had crown molding in it. It was quite a crazy job. And some of the trim work that we did, or that I did, all these different columns and crown molding. And this was another part of the home. I spent a lot of time on this house, interior and exterior, all the trim that was done. And this was his, these were all actually built by me as well, these cabinets and all of the backdrop stuff. This was like his pantry. Then he had me build these custom walnut spice racks as well as silverware trays. That was Tom, the guy I was working for at the time. He was a designer and I was his carpenter. He even took out a full-page ad for his business of a separate kitchen that we did after we did his. And so every single thing that you see in this picture was built in my shop at my house. And it's crazy looking back at that. And for those who are wondering, well, why aren't you still a carpenter? I started getting some severe sciatic pain in about 2012, 13, and it got so bad that I just had to quit my job. I walked off the job. I was working at a totally different house in the West Hills for a different guy, and it just got so bad I had to back out and leave. This was the kitchen corner we did, and every single piece of that was done in my shop here. And then this was a guy for Ed and Terry. This was like a library. I think this is before it was painted, but it had like a little pop-out, oh wait, sorry, upside down. There was a pop-out shelf up here, and fireplace down here, and all of these were bookshelves. And this design extended around the whole goddamn room. And so it took months for me to finish this, at least a couple months, and everything was done in, you know, the highest quality material I could find. I was using, I guess it's irrelevant what I used. I just wanted to share what I'd made. It's been a while since I had a an ad up for a long time with like links to my photo bucket page and whatnot, where I had dozens of pictures, and it's probably still there, but I just haven't utilized it. And since I walked away from this whole thing because of my back, I've just become frustrated with, the idea that my body won't cooperate with me. But lately I've felt like I'm ready to get back in the game, and I have all the tools I need. My whole shop, I could do all types of smaller things and just market them online. I lost my passion for a while because I lost my ability to work, and that's understandable. But looking back at these things and seeing what I've actually accomplished, it gives me a little bit of hope, at least, that, having those skills, I've got to say, it gives me a good feeling to know that I have some skills, at least, that I've learned, and ones that I can use on a regular basis, especially as a homeowner. So, thanks for watching, and thanks for watching me talk all about my own stuff, and I'll talk to you all later.